Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining me on your lunch hour for the third and final of our fraud and consumer protection lunch and learn series. If you are in the middle of your lunch, please continue. Feel free to enjoy your break, and thank you for joining us for a little bit of learning in the fraud and consumer protection space uh, as we talk about uh, FinTech in fraud and scams. I'm going to quickly do our spiel for those of you who are live. I'm positive that you've heard this before, but for everyone joining us online in the future, I just want to do a quick introduction to who we are and encourage you to check out other things in our world. Uh, as a heads up, this webinar is being recorded, as I mentioned. Hi, people in the future. Um, please take a minute to introduce yourself in the chat if you need or are interested in activating the closed captions. They are available. We are an informal group, so please add questions to the chat box as they come up. We are going to go fast today, so the more questions you ask, the more we can make sure to get into the pieces that you are interested in. Please take a minute to familiarize yourself with Fen. We are a network of providers. We like partnerships, we like friendships, and we do our best to make it easier for programs to offer affordable, effective, and relevant services, products, and other resources in the financial health space. If you haven't already, I encourage everyone to sign up for our upcoming workshop, Building Bridges Between Banks and Communities, the Power of the Community Reinvestment Act. You can find that link on our website at fenwa.org/events. We might also be dropping it in the chat shortly. I encourage everyone to take a minute to connect with that. It should be a really fun conversation. On top of that, all of our workshops are recorded, so please take a minute and check out our other recordings online, both on our website, fenwa.org/events, or on our YouTube channel. We are excited that folks are continuing to stay engaged through these recordings. That's the meat and potatoes of the Financial Empowerment Network. I appreciate everybody being here and joining us. For those who are joining live and joining us via the recording. But it is now my pleasure to not say many more words. I get to introduce two people who are much better placed to answer the question of fintech and fraud and scams. And I am so grateful that these two people have taken the time to share some of their wisdom and expertise with us. This first person, from our two previous workshops, Elena Huizar moved from Eastern Washington with her family to the Seattle area in 2014. She has been with the Office of the Attorney General for 16 years of public service, helping both consumers and business owners learn their rights and responsibilities under the Consumer Protection Act. She travels throughout the state to educate on scams, fraud, protection, and how to safely participate in an open marketplace. Thank you, Elena, for giving us our presentation. I'm also going to take a minute to introduce Minda Michelle, who will be facilitating our Q&A here in a minute. Thank you for joining us, Minda Michelle. Minda Michelle Mattox is a lifelong educator. She's taught and facilitated workshops for all ages for 30 plus years in different capacities. Minda Michelle presents on topics closest to her heart: financial wellness, equity, and social justice. Her passion is that people of color be well-versed in matters of personal and business finance. She collaborates with others to ensure that communities of color have the tools and resources to build generational wealth. And we'll hear from her a little bit later as we manage to get into the Q&A section. With that, I'm very excited to learn with our audience about fintech and how scammers have moved into the 21st century and engaged in scams using financial technology. Elena, take it away.
Thank you, Ryan. Welcome everyone for today's final lunch and learn on consumer protection and fraud and how to avoid it and how to, talk to other people about it. And Minda, Michelle, I thank you so much for moderating the chat today. And I also thank Andy Gutzmer, who is also online. And he is from the Attorney General's office as well, and worked really hard with me to create this presentation for you guys. We were having a conversation about, last week we talked about generational fraud and what that looks like as fraudsters target different generations. They don't discriminate. They don't care how old you are, but they do create a nuanced scam depending on your age or your generation. But Andy and I were talking about how, the scams are happening now and how they're applying to FinTech because everyone is so connected now electronically. And how before, we were making comments on like, wow, it's really moved into, mobile apps and the web and, your phone. Whereas before, how were people scammed? Probably in person, door-to-door sales, telephone calls. So there is a shift, there is a change, and let's talk about it. So I am going to share my screen that has the PowerPoint presentation. All right, and hopefully you guys should be able to see that. And then let me get my other screen. Okay, with my notes. So we're going to talk about fintech fraud and just an exploration of financial technology. So obviously I am an educator like Minda Michelle before we are anything else. And we always try to make sure to give as much information about who we are in consumer protection and the Office of the Attorney General, making every effort to provide this excellent, independent, and ethical legal service to the state of Washington in the form of protecting the rights of people in Washington state. So I've put our mission statement up on the screen just so you guys have that for future reference. But please know that you can find that on our website. And of course, you will get that resource at the very end of the presentation. And then Ryan and Fen will be able to post this presentation, the slides to their website. So we are composed of attorneys and professional staff. We do enforce the Consumer Protection Act. And for those of you who want to look that up, that's RCW 19.86. And then other statutes that help keep the Washington marketplace free from unfair and deceptive practices. So we do investigate and we do file legal actions to stop those unfair and deceptive practices. We also attempt to recover refunds for consumers, and we do seek penalties against offending entities. So we want to make sure that wrongdoers are paying for their actions in Washington state. So getting into fintech, always what I do in my presentations is have a definition. And so it is a noun, and it is considered computer programs and other technology that is used to support or enable banking and financial services. So if you have used Venmo to split a dinner check with your friends, if you have bought cryptocurrency, if you're like me and have adult children who sometimes want a coffee and they want mom to send them the money, you have used fintech. If you've purchased cryptocurrency on your phone, you've used an app to make a budget, you've put the power of fintech to work for you. So the approximate percentage of users that U.S. consumers that are using technology to manage their finances jumped from 58% in 2020 to 80% in 2022. And that means that more people are now using fintech products than social media. So fintech is now just slightly behind the internet as one of the most widely adopted consumer technologies. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I always feel like Judy Jetson when I go into the store and I use my phone to pay at the point of sale. The little machine, you just put it up there and I'm just like, wow, that is so cool. I don't have to have any money in my pocket. I don't have to have any money in my wallet, but the money is on my phone. So this increase in financial technology usage is really reshaping the financial world. People's money is easier to access, as I just mentioned, and there's more that we can do with it. FinTech does provide new ways to share, to save, to invest, to manage money, making life better for people it touches while helping reaching those that are underserved. So how does FinTech work? Well, there are several types of FinTech apps and they work in different ways. Some FinTech apps safely unlock financial account data, for example, in your transactions or your account balances, while other apps may allow users to track their investments across multiple platforms. So, for example, wealth and financial management apps will, kind of consolidate that financial account data from different accounts into an easy to read snapshot, showing the user all of their financial information in one convenient place. Some apps might also make suggestions to help users improve their financial position based on available data. I know that I've seen and I have some friends too that would check like how much they were spending in a month because the app was categorizing how much was entertainment, how much was food, how much was work related. So another thing that FinTech does is it does allow users to do things like trade stocks, cryptocurrencies. It allows people to easily and quickly make a wide variety of investments. So some of the things you may see in fintech are financial APIs. What is an API? It's an application program interface, which is an app basically with a program or an easy way to be able to look at, whatever it is that you're looking at, like your bank or like a budgeting app. It allows you to do that safely and securely, connecting the consumer's bank accounts to these apps and services so that they can share that financial data, transfer funds, and also, of course, verify identities. And so this is something that we talk about a lot, which is obviously mobile applications. Basically, a lot of this falls under that title of mobile applications. Most fintech companies offer a mobile app so that users can access their funds and insights at any time. It might be digital banking, it might be a financial management tool, or even an investment platform. Mobile apps are nearly synonymous with fintech. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention was a web-based solution. So on top of offering a mobile app, some, but not all, fintechs do offer a web-based solution where users can log on via a web browser and perform the same functions that they can perform on the mobile app. So with the power of the APIs to safely unlock financial data and convenient mobile apps, fintech has really changed daily life for most. It's increasingly likely that friends and family who want to send money to each other would do that, like using PayPal or Cash App or Venmo, rather than exchanging cash or checks in person or even via postal mail. So in addition to time and money savings, a lot of people, and this is from, I put my source there, Plaid 2022 was a FinTech effect survey and the effect that it has on consumers in the United States. The respondents cited that besides what you see on the screen, there were softer answers like easier financial tracking, there was a greater control, there was more choice and improved financial habits. So this does speak a lot to, quantifiable and not quantifiable ways that fintech has become an integral part of people's daily lives. So I don't know about you guys, but when I go out to eat or I go and I spend money somewhere, I will quickly, as soon as I've made that transaction, go and check my banking account if I'm using my debit card to see if that money has already been deducted to my account and if it's the same amount that I have on my receipt, just because I'm kind of paranoid like that. So the top benefits, it saves time, it helps people feel control in their finances, it has saved people money they feel, and it's also reduced the fear and stress of managing money and then help people recover from potential financial mistakes. But of course, all good things are infiltrated by fraudsters. What is fraud in fintech? And that's what we're here to talk about today. So what does it look like? Driven by the use of technology, fintech fraud continues to evolve. Some common types of fraud or fintech fraud include account takeover, using stolen credentials, exploiting weaknesses in security measures. They use this to gain unauthorized access to a user's account. Of course, we see phishing. We mentioned this in our very first presentation on scams. They use deceptive emails, texts, fake websites to trick individuals into sharing sensitive information like your login credentials or even financial details. We see payment fraud, making fraudulent transactions with stolen credit card information, mobile payment apps, or even cryptocurrency wallets. One of the scams that we talked about last time was advance fee fraud, and that's tricking users into paying upfront fees to receive a promised benefit like a loan, like an inheritance, prize, and of course, no one ever gets that. And then the last thing, that falls under imposter fraud, of course. And we talked about imposter fraud as well, where they're posing to be somebody else so that you believe that you're dealing with a person you may or that you may know or a family member, and in the end, it's not anyone that you actually know. And then the last thing that we see is card not present. I don't know if that's happened to any of you guys, but this type of fraud refers to illegitimate payments where the physical payment card is not present during the transaction. So CPN payments usually take place online or through the phone. And I'll give you guys an example. This happened to me in, I think it was November of last year. I got a weird phone call one Sunday morning, and I didn't answer because, of course, I don't answer numbers that I don't recognize. They left me a voicemail. It was automated and said, there's been some fraudulent activity on your account. And I was like, am I falling for that? Of course not. Do you know who you're talking to? And so I did not call them back. But what happened was I did decide to check my debit account because I was like, okay, that's a little fishy. And actually, there was fraudulent activity on my account. It was my bank calling with an automated message. And so they let me know that my debit card had been compromised and somebody bought tickets to the Jonas Brothers. And then they also bought themselves about $80 worth of wings at some wings place. Who spends $80 on wings? I don't know. Not this girl. But anyway, Jonas Brothers, nah. $80 wings, also nah. And I had to file a fraudulent report. And that was done through a CPN, a card not present. So CPN payments only require the card details and not the physical card itself. So bad actors find it really easy to make fraudulent online purchases like wings for 80 bucks using stolen credit card details. And they can easily access card details from data breaches, from hacking, from phishing campaigns, website scraping, and several other devious methods. So let's talk about that first one, account takeovers. So one way that scammers can carry out these types of scams is through control of social media accounts. So targets are much more likely to fall for a scam if they think it's a legitimate request from a friend or a family member. So what's the premise? Messages to friends and family. They pivot to outside messenger apps. And then there's the pig butchering and imposter fraud. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about pig butchering if you haven't heard that term before. What are the red flags? Well, they create a false sense of emergency and that there's trouble, something's happening. And then, of course, it tries to pivot, or they try to pivot you to an alternative payment app. So scammers do search for passwords, and in data leaks, they use phishing to gain access. They can claim to be anyone and call for help in a financial emergency or ask to borrow money or strongly recommend a fraudulent website, app, or just about anything else that they'll think might be useful in getting the target to comply. So often these scammers will try and pivot the conversation to another app. And that's where we're mentioning that they send you somewhere else. Where their fake profile might be a little bit more convincing, or to a space where they can deepen that scam. We also see scammers in this space using convincing accounts to lead people to alternative payment apps, cryptocurrency, and other spaces where less aware targets might be more vulnerable. So let me explain pig butchering. It is a scam. It's a type of long-term scam and even investment fraud where the target will gradually be lured into making increasing contributions, usually in the form of cryptocurrency or a fraudulent cryptocurrency scheme. These are really commonplace in social media apps. So what are some examples of pig butchering scams? So Why is it called pig butchering? That was my thing when I first heard this. So it's named, this is really awful, but it's named after the farming practice of fattening up the livestock before slaughtering them. So pig butchering scams like to portray their targets as unsuspecting poor little piggies. And then the scammers are playing the role of the butchers. So this metaphor really does emphasize the gradual process of luring that victim into what appears to be a legitimate, for example, investment before they suddenly disappear. These scams are usually triggered by a deceptive wrong number, a text, and then the target is pulled into a maze of, just fake information. Once the target has sent funds, the illusion shatters. The investments, for example, were all fake, vanish, and they leave their target grappling with financial ruin. So again, just to go over it very quickly, there's that initial contact, and it could be through unsolicited messages, calls, via text, social media, messaging on apps like WhatsApp. We do have a presentation where we talk about scams that happen on WhatsApp. And then there's developing that trust. Or it might be over days or even months where the scammer will engage in non-investment related conversations or non-financial conversations to break down the target's defenses. They might share personal details, mostly lies, adopting various personas, fostering a connection, and then exploiting their target's vulnerabilities. Then they start steering you towards a scam. They guide the discussion toward, for example, investments, often claiming to have ties to a reputable financial institution. And then they create an illusion. They create an illusion of wealth. They might even share screenshots of, something that's gone very well for them. The visual manipulation ultimately convinces the target that following their instructions will lead to profits. And then, kind of what is also continuing is, verification, giving them instructions. Sometimes rather than directly soliciting money, the scammers present an opportunity to control their own accounts. So the scammer then guides the target through verifying their information on different platforms so that they can give instructions on how to do this supposed investment. And so then they do believe that they are in control, or they're giving this information to someone that they trust. They're helping them make sound financial decisions. And then of course there's the evasion and then the exit. So once the scammer gets what they wanted from the target, then the scammer might vanish, leaving behind these worthless investments, a shattered trust, and then the target is left with financial losses. So pig butchering is pretty awful. Some of the things that we see these places where these scams occur are peer-to-peer scams or peer-to-peer payment apps, and this might be what we mentioned earlier, like Zelle and Cash App and Venmo. They're really popular in these peer-to-peer spaces. What we mean when we say peer-to-peer is that they're interacting under the presumption of being an equal to the target that they have focused on in this market of whatever app it is that they happen to be using. So it's really important, especially when we're going out and talking to consumers, to consider how varied and vast this space can be. So the varied marketplace, which includes almost all of social media and communication apps like WhatsApp and even Discord, some of them have their own marketplace spaces like Facebook Marketplace. And then there's marketplace sites like Craigslist, Mercari, Etsy, and others. Because these spaces do rely on engagement, users are scrolling and they're clicking and they're searching and they're looking through items. This drives ad sales, but these entities, these platforms are not motivated to remove all fraudulent listings. So it is very easy to for a scammer to open multiple accounts, list duplicate items, and then even permeate the marketplace with potential scams. Many people use the peer-to-peer marketplaces to shop, and many are legitimate buyers and sellers. However, the space is very open and vulnerable to scammers. So, these spaces also run on all kinds of different forms of money transactions. So while traditional stores and legitimate retailers will have a POS, which is a point of sale system like Square or Clover, or even the old fashioned register, individuals, very small businesses, scammers, they all use a variety of methods to move money around. As I mentioned before, it includes PayPal and Venmo and Cash App. People ask me all the time, like I was buying some books from the Facebook Marketplace the other day from somebody who lives here locally. And she's like, do you have Venmo? And I was like, I do. And so we met up in a parking lot. I bought her books and I paid her Venmo. And we didn't even exchange. We didn't even have to get out of our cars. She handed me a bag. I mean, it looked like a fishy transaction, but it wasn't. It was totally fantasy. I love books, you guys, and I buy books all the time, even from strangers in parking lots. And so PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, direct bank transfers, even, these are increasingly available features in many bank apps. Cryptocurrency is also a popular method of exchange. We've been talking about that for the majority of this presentation. And then that can be purchased even in like Cash App, for example. So scammers use these spaces to extract funds from their targets, but they also use other ways of funneling money like gift cards, fraudulent checks, and even outright stolen credit card information. So we do tell people to be very careful when if they do decide to use a peer-to-peer payment app. So going back to what I mentioned earlier about scam sellers and buyers. So there's fake sales, there's an urgent offer, it's a one-time sale, gotta get rid of these. There was problems with shipping, we need to get these out. It's pretty much a gateway into other scams, and that includes even imposter scams. Participation, the continued conversation can make this more believable, but then it turns into like alternative payments or pivots to apps or outside messengers. The most common scam in this space comes from scam sellers. So they are usually impersonating a real business or using accounts that look like a brand that you would recognize, or they may be fully invented and relying on bringing their targets in with attractive pricing and promises. They may be individuals who operate fully fraudulent stores and often offer items which they never even possess in the first place. Recognizing these signs can be tricky. So they do operate a website that's meant to look like a legitimate brand, but they'll usually be unsecure. So you got to look for that little padlock at the top, or the S in the HTTP website address. Making sure that you're checking out, whether or not that website is safe. They do, as I mentioned before, create fake sales, that urgent offer. It could be a potential gateway into another scam. And then, of course, there's that other sign of possibly asking for an alternative payment. Now, a popular component of many scams is remote access to your device. So any device that is connected to the internet has the capacity to be remote controlled. Have you guys ever gotten that phone call that says, hey, it's Microsoft, your computer's running slow. We'll help you. Don't worry, just give us remote access. Well, now that has morphed to our devices, what we are holding in our hand, our tablets and our cell phones. Any device has a capacity, as long as it's connected to the internet, of being remotely controlled. So most do have security features that prevent this from happening without your say so, but not having or you providing your say so is really simple and can be as simple as a click of a button. And I can tell you guys a very quick story. This happened to my brother. My brother was using a peer-to-peer payment app. They said he was very impatient, did a Google search for the consumer or customer service phone number. This payment app does not have a customer service phone number. Instead, you have to access customer service on the app itself, which is via chat. Now, a lot of us are impatient, especially Gen X. We're kind of impatient. My brother is definitely Gen X, and he wanted an instant gratification, wanted to call somebody and talk to somebody. Unfortunately, he ended up talking to some scammers, and he gave them remote access to his peer-to-peer payment app account. So fake tech support pop-ups, unsafe websites, unsecure or fraudulent apps all have hidden ways to approving that remote access to your device. It's very common in tech support and government imposter scams because it does add a lot of convincing visual to the story. If your computer is under attack and only they can help you, watching a personal device behave strangely as someone else controls it makes that target feel helpless, and it is much more compliant with the scammer when they tell them that something bad is happening. And so they have to act now and pay in order to make it stop. So again, this kind of leads to that pig butchering, in which the target, is can be controlled through investment or even a romance scam. And it sometimes involves remote access where they are, helping someone to show them to how to invest or how to retire early. And so, you have to be very careful, stay vigilant, be careful of pop-ups, of unsafe websites, of unknown apps. It is very important, to emphasize how careful people must be when answering unsolicited contacts, when they're embarking on a new investment where they may not have, full understanding. If they're panicked because they believe they've been hacked or they fear that their computer's being used for some illegal purpose, we encourage people to just pause, think, talk about it with friends and family, and then refuse to grant access to anyone that you don't know. If it's not your grandchild who, might work for the Geek Squad, please don't allow anybody to access your devices remotely. So to avoid account takeovers, remote control of your devices, and other FinTech risks, we recommend extremely careful control of your passwords and careful attention to any app through which you transact money. That doesn't just mean your banking apps and your Venmo. It means that any app that saves your credit card info, any app with which you talk to friends about splitting checks at restaurants, and any app through which you shop. So, good password practice means changing them often, using phrases rather than single words, using special characters, not just an exclamation point at the end, and never using any details that can be learned about you from a simple search or your social media account. So social media accounts can be opened by anyone, and this thus makes it a dangerous space for scam targets. We do rely on social media a lot more nowadays for communication, which also makes communication less secure. So we strongly encourage keeping all your accounts up to date, closing and deleting any accounts that you don't use anymore. There is a website on here, and I'm going to, once we have our Q&A, I'm going to let my colleague talk about I have been pwned, I believe is how you say it. Our outreach services coordinator who is on the call, he searched his personal email address. This is an email address that he's had since 2004, and he has been pwned on it. There are data breaches dating from as far back as 2013, where his email was leaked. And so this service does help show, not that we're promoting any service, but you can check this out about, if your email address has been pwned. So I'm going to let Andy talk a little bit more about that once we have our Q&A, but this is just an example of what came up when he searched himself. So double check all the information that it is correct before you send funds to those that even those that you know. Confirm that the person to whom you're sending money. Do not give your username, your PIN, or password to anyone. Don't click on any links in an unexpected email, text message, or direct message. Verify that you're actually talking to customer support. Don't give anybody remote access to your device. Don't share that information. Your bank already knows your personal information and will never need to call, text, or email you to ask for this information. So if you receive an interaction that just doesn't seem right, end the conversation immediately and contact a trusted channel. Call your financial institution directly. Just to give you a very quick FinTech example, Andy put these together for us today from 2023. I fell for a pet scam via a fraudulent website where I thought I was buying a dog. $600 for the dog, $250 for shipping. One company paid through Zelle and $1,585 deposit, for the crate, which I would get back once I collected the dog and returned the crate. This was all paid through Zelle to a different fraudulent company. And to give you an example of pig butchering that we've actually seen in our office, it all started when I met Celine Ava, a broker of cryptocurrency. Oh, Celine, she just has a fancy name. Online through Facebook, I was always curious about the trading market and the systems of cryptocurrency and how it works. So I started my own small investment with Celine's guidance. Unfortunately, I put my faith into Celine and went along with the steps and procedures of the app as they verified my identity and take all the necessary steps to prove I wasn't lying or faking my identification, with those securities in mind that my information would be confidential and secluded from others and desperate to receive financial aid. I had little problem with this. She got me to send my investments to a crypto website called elitecapitalinvestment.com around the summer of 2021. After I invested and sent money through crypto wallets to Elite, I seen my account receive the funds, and with that I invested into a plan the website offers investors. The more money you invest, the bigger the plan you can get. The more earn, however, you have to wait longer for the ability to withdraw from your investment. I got to know Celine more and more. We began talking more and started to form a connection with her. Time went by and I was building a trust to this woman. Finally, some wonderful news and financial burdens uplifted that eventually I was attracted to her and she seemed to be interested to me as well. We formed a bond solely online shortly afterwards on Facebook and Facebook Messenger and a few conversations on WhatsApp. So you see how this pig butchering can continue. So what do you do if something like this happens to you? You file a complaint with our office. We offer an informal complaint resolution service to Washington state residents and to consumers with complaints about businesses that are located in Washington state. So through this process, we contact businesses to determine their response to consumer complaints. If a business refuses to respond or make an adjustment, we can't compel them to do so, but we will offer alternative opportunities for the consumer to continue to go forward with their complaint. We are authorized to bring legal action in the name of the state of Washington and be the attorney for Washington state consumers as a whole in the marketplace. So the complaint is assigned to a staff member. We request a response. A copy of the complaint and supporting documents are sent to the business. The complaint process usually takes anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. Your complaint is a public record, and then a file is ultimately closed once we get a response, and that information is shared with you, the consumer. So you can go to our website, atg.wa.gov, or you can call us at 1-800-551-4636. And so at the end of every presentation, we do provide you with these resources on reporting spam, on reporting identity theft to the Federal Trade Commission, the FBI Internet Crime Complaint Center, if you are dealing with something that you think was a fraudulent activity on the internet, how to access your credit report to make sure that there's nothing fishy on your credit report, and then of course, how to report to the Office of the Attorney General in the Consumer Protection Division. There's our 1-800 number, once again, 551-4636 and atg.wa.gov. And so I will end this slideshow with the final one that says, do you have any questions? I know we're reaching the end of our time, so I will stop my share, but I thank you all so much for participating in today's workshop, and I hope it has given you useful information on how to avoid FinTech fraud. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Elena. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I have my earphones in. And you were going to ask Andrew to share about something?
The pwned?
Because I don't see any more questions.
He wants to jump on.
Andrew, you want
to? Yeah, so for those of you who don't speak internet slang from the, gamer era 20 years ago, pwned is shorthand for defeated. So have I been pwned is a internet shorthand for has my information been, doxed, leaked, or, taken advantage of in some way. As Elena said, we don't promote any, specific services, but Have I Been Pwned is a useful resource in which you can search any number of email addresses that you've had in the past and take a look at what that service does. Is it looks through millions and millions and millions of data leaks and they can review whether or not your email address was implicated and how many times that particular data leak has been, shared or sold, and also let which accounts might have an old password that you should be removing from your rotation of passwords, and which ones have, email addresses that if it's been leaked enough, maybe it's time to open a new email account. So it's a good metric just to see how exposed you can be on the internet, how vulnerable your information can be. Our office collects data breach notifications from businesses in Washington, and
Well,
data
we don't
breaches.
collect them. They have to legally report that to our office. So it is the law.
Yes. Um, and they're, it's always happening. So just good to be aware and practice good password discipline. So it's a great resource to sort of consider your spread of passwords and how to stay safe.
That's
Thank you,
awesome. Thank you
Andy.
both for that. I'd never heard of that website, so thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't either. Andy's the one who told me about it.
Nice.
And
Thanks, Andy.
on that slide, which has a screenshot of my report from one of the email addresses I had back in high school, Luxottica, which is the company that owns like Sunglass Hut and all these mall sunglass stores and glasses providers, um, Park Mobile, which is like a parking meter app, where it was also a leak. It was just surprising. You don't think about the parking app as being a place where your information is not safe, but they save your credit card and your license plate numbers and a whole bunch of other information. So,
Ooh, that's
it's
good to
really something
know.
to consider.
That's good. And like, how do you delete those accounts or remove that information
I mean, you have
from those?
to individually go to those apps and those
Okay.
websites. And it's also just a good reminder to sort of like practice good maintenance of your old accounts, go through apps that you don't
Yeah.
use anymore and just close
Yeah.
your old accounts, get rid of them. And also see like which credit card did you have saved in that app before, and maybe is a good idea. I mean, hopefully if it's an old app that you forgot about,
Right.
the
Your
credit
card
card
is
is hopefully
expired.
expired.
Exactly.
but
Exactly.
it's still there. So and I wouldn't put it past a clever scammer with even some pieces of information about you to make an attempt to get in touch with your bank, or some other form of sort of minor identity theft off of some of those pieces of information. So
Wow. That's so scary. Thank you for sharing that,
Yeah,
Andy.
thank you, Andy.
Will made a couple of good comments. Are we out of time, Ryan? It's 12:40. Will made a couple of great comments.
I think we can quickly touch on those, but we are a reasonably small group live, so I appreciate everyone's time here together. So take the care that you need.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to highlight Will's comments about his client who had 22 cases of fraud, $1,200 in over. That's just overdraft fees, Will. I hate to hear what the actual amount that they took from the accounts were.
It was averaging roughly 220 some odd dollars a month over the course of about almost 2 years.
Oh my goodness.
And they all claim to be faith-based organization. I worked with someone from DSHS because this particular client was working with DSHS as well, and we sat down together and looked through about a dozen of these organizations, and not a single one of them was actually connected to a registered like church
Non-profit. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
religious organization.
Right.
They were a quote unquote nonprofit, but not a 501c3 or anything of that nature. And
Wow.
most everyone that we saw was actually a political
Oh man.
organization.
Oh.
So this particular client, yeah, their faith is the one thing that holds their reality together, and it's devastating to see what they're going through, but they
Mm-hmm.
cannot accept the fact that this had happened to them for years.
Mm. Wow.
It's only yeah, but again, the bank was really really helpful,
Right.
and they're the ones who found 22 cases of fraud. They instituted all their fraud protection policies, stopped all the automatic payments, all but one. There's still one for $5 that comes out every month, and we're trying to track down this because it's the phone number they gave isn't a valid phone number. They're not in Washington State.
Oh wow.
Yesterday I got their mail. They had 3 pieces of mail from this organization, all 3 identical letters, identical
wow.
everything, except the return addresses were 3 different states outside of
wow.
Washington.
Oh geez.
And the phone numbers didn't work. The web addresses were non-existent.
Well, if your client feels inclined to do so, they should definitely file a complaint with our office so that we can take a look at that. And
I've asked them.
And they
I've asked them.
They don't want to do it.
It's nope. They're good Christian people.
And so they don't want to get somebody in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is $60 a year. No, they're good Christian people. Like, no, they're not. They're stealing your money.
Right.
But
wow. Well, hopefully you can convince them eventually to do something about that, Will, or somebody can.
Yeah, I've got their family involved. So hopefully that'll help. But
well, with that, and I am struggling to turn that into a happy ending.
Right.
Well, like I said, so the bank, I mean, the fact that we were able to stop everything, so it's $5 a month instead of 220 some odd dollars a month.
I'll take
there
that.
are no more overdraft fees. So
I'll take that.
In the last 6 months or last year now, we've been able to keep that average of $1,200 every 6 months not being taken out of their account.
Yeah.
So far, that's what, $2,400 that they're not spending.
Yes.
Right. Right.
So.
Well, I appreciate the conversation, the feedback. I deeply, deeply, deeply appreciate Elena and the Attorney General's office for spending 3 weeks with us, educating us on fraud and consumer protection. It has been a pleasure. I appreciate all of this information getting recorded and available on our website and on our YouTube channel. Thank you to Minda Michelle for facilitating the conversation today, as well as the initial conversation on the 11th. Thank you to John McKinney, who is not here today, but who helped facilitate last week's workshop. I appreciate everyone who has been able to attend live as well as watch this recording series on YouTube. Please take a minute if you're here live or watching this in the not too distant future to fill out our survey, as well as check out other events coming up soon in the world of the Financial Empowerment Network, as well as take a minute and review some of our old workshops. Even if it's not the most recent, a lot of it's still wonderful learnings. So with that, I encourage everyone to stay safe, to stay healthy, report things that feel weird, talk amongst friends and family when you're feeling the this is too good to be true, or the
heebie-jeebies,
or the heebie-jeebies, ooby-goobies.
And don't buy purebred pets through Zelle.
Yeah.
All of the above.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's all seems so real. Anyway, I got to get on the road, y'all.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, everybody.
A wonderful rest of your summer.
Yes. Until next time.
Everyone. Yes. Thank everybody.